All right. We'll jump right on into the questions. Obviously, give it a little bit of an introduction. Tell us a bit about your early education and what you did, because I know you had talked about like what you did going into the esports industry, but I'm more so wanting to know what you did in your undergrad and in your master's to kind of prepare yourself for the workforce as a student.
Yeah, so I completed my undergrad degree at a school called Millersville University. It's in like Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in this country. Small state school. And my focus there was marketing. I knew pretty early on I wanted to be in sports, but no idea what that meant. And my career, I spent my senior year interning. That's kind of how I got my job at Comcast Spectacor. I kind of interned and never left. So I started my career as an intern at Spectacor, and then moved to our analytics kind of group inside our sales arm. At the time, the company was called Front Row Marketing. Later got spun out into what is now, I guess it's Oakview owns it, but it was Spectra for a little bit there, and then it got sold. So, but I was doing sponsorship analytics, evaluating partnerships, things like that. Did that for a few years, then got into finance and accounting, managing all of our revenue for all of the different facilities that we managed and sold for worldwide. And then, midway through my career there, kind of had a mentor that kind of plucked me out of obscurity at the corporate level. And part of joining his team was that I had to go get an MBA. And the reasoning for that was because I was doing finance, FP&A, budgeting, and my undergrad was in marketing. So on paper, he even said I wouldn't even hire you, right? So I just happened to be right place, right time. So I went to Villanova University. I got
Right.
my MBA while working full time still, and my focus there was finance, analytics, and strategic management. So it was a 2-year program. Did that, and then kind of at the tail end of finishing up there, we Spectacor got into esports. We bought a slot into the now defunct, but the Overwatch League. We were the last team in late 2017 as the Philadelphia Fusion, and that was kind of our first foray into gaming. Obviously, we own the Philadelphia Flyers in the pro sports world, so we were one of the groups, kind of like the Crafts and the Wilpons coming in
Right.
from professional sports. But we brought in Tucker Roberts. He's the president of Spectacor Gaming. He was coming from EA at the time, and kind of different perspective. He was a younger guy, kind of understood the world of gaming, where it was going, streaming, and I just happened to be the youngest person on the floor by 20 years that were like, hey, do you want to go help out with gaming? And so sure enough, started helping Tucker out with gaming. And I'll never forget, I went to we had a mansion out in California for our team. That was season 1 in Overwatch, and I show up to the house, and I guess because I was a pretty formal person, they were expecting some 50-year-old person to show up to the house, and I'm like, no, I'm just me. So that was my foray into gaming. And then it was weird, like I was half the age of we had 18-year-old kids, right, gaming. And so that was fun. And then March 2018, did our first trip ever to South Korea. Kind of Tucker laid out his vision of wanting to get into esports in the kind of the mecca of esports in South Korea. And we wanted to get into League of Legends. The goal was to honestly buy a cheap, small team and just kind of build a brand and build it up. And it just so happened World was there that year. It was also the worst World ever for South Korean teams. We met with pretty much a handful of teams. It leaked that we were in Korea, looked shopping around, and it listed every single team but 2. It didn't list KT and it didn't list SKT. It just assumed that everyone else was for sale. And it just so happened at the time that we were in Korea looking to, get into league, SKT was looking to kind of spin out their esports division from their marketing group, with their sports marketing group. And, we had a meeting there with them at their HQ and kind of shared our vision of where we thought the ball was going. They kind of shared their vision, made sense. And then, that was December, October, right? That time frame of 2018. Took a whole year. 2019, October, we finalized the transaction and created a joint venture with SK Telecom and Comcast to form T1. And then ever since then, I've been running T1, and I would say I've done okay. But internet, has a wide array of opinions, but I think we've done a pretty good job, all things considered.
Heck of a first question answer. I mean, I don't call you the CEO of base for nothing. So to spin off of that, you'd mentioned that it was a requirement for one of your jobs to get your master's, and there's a bit of a gap in between your undergrad and getting your master's because you had already like kind of established yourself in the corporate workforce. What
Yeah.
was it like going back to school for you? What were the obstacles that you had to overcome?
Well, I was married with two babies at that point. So there was a hurdle there. But honestly, I felt more prepared for my master's as an older student getting an MBA, in that, 30 range, versus when I was an undergrad. Because when you're an undergrad and you're 18 years old, like, yeah, you're taking student loans out, and you don't realize you have to pay those off later in life. And it took me 15 years to pay off my student loans, but like, you appreciate it more because you're more focused on the actual learning in the master's course, and you're with people that are looking to grow, looking to build their networks. And I just found it a much more enjoyable experience. So it was kind of, it set me up for, I think, my time at T1 because of, with working full time, going to school, also having a young family. Time management was something that I got really good at. And even with T1 having, running it from Pennsylvania, I'm 14 hours behind, for the most part, with South Korea. And, for 4 or 5 years here, I'm getting up at 1, 2 in the morning, my time, to do meetings, meet with my staff, stuff like that. So you get really good really quickly at managing your time blocking. So yeah, no, I thought my MBA experience, and being a student, at an older age was, well, one, you're paying for it too, because now you know the value of a dollar versus when you're an
Right.
18-year-old. But I just felt more prepared and more engaged with learning. And even since then, I'm a pretty avid reader. I love to read books. And it just kind of set me off on that path.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I feel like that's like kind of my journey that I'm experiencing right now at Maryville. Like, I'm not a traditional junior, I'm turning 24 this Friday. So, I mean,
Happy
I
birthday.
thank you, thank you. It's kind of brought a new perspective because I started college right out of high school, and I wasn't ready for it mentally and like just emotionally. So I took some breaks and eventually went back to it, and I feel like what you said about you just have a whole different approach to the learning process is really true. But moving on to that and focusing more on your responsibilities at T1, what are some tasks that are essential to your day to day as CEO?
I mean, top line and bottom line. I mean, at the end of the day, your board's going to judge you on how you move the company forward. I think from a public perspective, it's probably winning and losing. But we spent 5 years trying to make T1 agnostic, whether we won or lost, right? I think sports, whether it's esports or traditional sports, there's going to be ebbs and flows, right? And we've lived that these past few years, where 2020 we come out, we win spring, and then we don't win world. We don't even make worlds, right? And then the 2021, you falter in spring, fire your coach, somehow get to spring finals, and then make it to semifinals of worlds. 2022, you go undefeated, first time ever, lose at MSI in the finals, lose in summer finals, go to world's finals, lose, repeat, go to spring finals, lose, go to MSI, lose in semis, go to summer finals, lose, and then get back to the top of the mountain. And it's like, and we win. And I remember in South Korea last year doing the polar opposite of everything that we did in 2022. Because I think in 2022, we just thought we were going to kind of run through it, and it was DRX. We beat them all year. And it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. It's kind of what we preach with our teams, because it really doesn't matter if you're good in January, right? It's how are you peaking in November? And our guys, more so than a lot of athletes and teams have a lot more pressure on them just because they are essentially the national team of Korea, right? I think three of my guys were on the Asian Games team. Faker's a global superstar. I mean, he's a international. He happens to play video games, right? But he's a star, and they have a lot more things pulling at them one way or the other versus, how you see esports in America. It's just a little different dynamic, and the stakes are a bit higher for us. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I mean it definitely does. I mean the next question is like, what's some like highlights? What's some stuff that you look forward to doing in your typical work week?
Um, Well, watching scrims, I watch scrims every day, so getting to see that what we're doing. Because for me, it's not about what happens. Like, most fans, it's like the tip of the iceberg theory. They're only seeing the 2 hours twice a week of the games, and I get to see the 6 hours a day of the work that goes into that. So, you know, by seeing that, and I didn't play League prior to being at T1, so definitely the 10,000 hour theory of, if you watch and learn, you can learn the game, right? I'm at a point now where I can see what we're trying to do before it happens. I understand why we're building things a certain way. So you kind of learn that over along the way. But watching scrims, I think, meeting with my staff, kind of strategizing for the different things that we're trying to accomplish. I mean, you look at what we've done at T1, where we spun out an esports entity that was in a conglomerate, and we moved it down to the business district of Seoul. We built an 11-story facility. We started like different businesses, whether it's our esports academy, our PC Bang T1 base camp, which is the #1 ranked PC Bang in all of South Korea, and it hasn't even been open a year yet. Our retail business, establishing retail hubs in China and Japan, America. We've really made it a business, which is why we've been able to thrive in this esports winter, where you're seeing a lot of consolidation in the industry, sponsors leave, et cetera. So that's always challenging and fun. And also preparing for like the marquee events for Worlds, MSI, Valorant Champions. That's always been fun. And then also too, like on the downside is like learning from your mistakes, right? I think, not everyone's going to get everything right. I'm certainly no stranger to that myself. And I think, knowing when to kind of pivot and not just throw good money at bad money because you invested, you have to know when to walk away from the table. And, we've done that over the past few years at T1, but you have to be willing to learn so you don't make the same mistake twice. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, if you keep making the same mistakes, then you're really not, open to to change. So it's good to learn from those mistakes, because mistakes are good. They're just kind of stepping stones to future success. So
Right. Of course, it's actually really, really funny that you say esports winter, because I pivots us perfectly into the next question I had in my notes. Right now, people in the industry are saying that we're in an esports winter. It's a real doom and gloom period for professional play. And what do you think, in your opinion, is the start of factoring in sustainability models for pro tier organizations without relying heavily on venture capital funding?
yeah, well, I think the reason we're in winter is because of the VC funding. When all that money came pouring in 2017, 2018, you had a lot of people in charge of these orgs that didn't have the necessary skill sets. They may have been a pro gamer, but they don't understand business. And, a lot of money was spent either giving it to players, giving it to content creators, renting houses, that kind of stuff. And, without building underlying businesses that you can actually make money off of, because esports itself, without publisher help, and I mean, like, without skins and in-game sales, is not a profitable thing, right? Like, back in the day when Korean esports salaries were 10 grand a year, and you have 5 players and you win worlds, like, okay, like, you can make it work. But now with salaries rising to, millions of dollars a year or $500,000 a year, per player, it's not sustainable. So I think, lessons learned from when all that money came pouring in, we kind of figured out esports when it was coming 2 years ago. We moved all our operations to Korea. But we focused on making sure that our other businesses outside of game teams were solidified. So that's why we started our T1 membership program, T1 Fan, our academy, our base camp business. We did some original IP and a webtoon and but the thing is that allows us to do that is we have an underlining fandom, right? T1 has a massive fan base. And I think there's a big difference in the top tier teams that have those fans, TSM, G2, Carmine Corp, Fnatic, Cloud9, versus other ones that don't. And you're seeing now people make better decisions. You saw that these big publicly traded valuations, $1 billion, it gets sold for 16 million. Jason Lake just bought back Complexity for $10 million. Like the era of these big, Optic getting sold for the first couple of times back in the day, like when the VC money came through, the pro sports team money, you're seeing it normalize and stabilize. And I think part of the reason the esports valuations shouldn't be so crazy is we don't have media rights, and we never will. We don't have the NFL TV deals, the NBA, baseball, where an NFL team, starting out the gate before they even sell a ticket is already in the black because they have these massive TV deals. And esports doesn't have that. Overwatch League, was getting their Twitch money, but that's all gone away now, right? Like you're seeing upstarts like Kick in the field, but no one's paying for esports rights. And esports fans have proven that they don't want to pay for the rights to watch esports, which is ironic because they have no problem donating money to millionaire streamers to watch their content, right? So like it's kind of a thing where esports is assumed to be a free commodity from a viewership standpoint, but fans have been known to buy the skins, buy the capsules, buy the merchandise. So like while you're not getting that money on a media rights deal, fans are spending money. They are showing up to the marquee events. The narrative that esports is not sustainable in America is misleading because every time America does a tentpole event, whether it's League of Legends, whether it's Counter-Strike, Rocket League, like they're selling out these venues, right? So it's more of a, how do you change the formatting of how we're playing the games, right? Like I've been an advocate behind the scenes of, spring split has basically been useless, right? For League of Legends. It's just, you play, you get to go to MSI. Even if you win MSI, you literally get nothing. You get a money, and then you lose practice time, then you get on the summer split, and you end up probably being behind the eight ball. Where now I think this year, if you win MSI, you get a guaranteed slot to Worlds. But why not change the format up? Why not change what spring split looks like and pick a top team from each of the different regions, have them show up to a location and compete in a mini tournament, and do that in 4 different tournaments. So you have a Korean team playing against an American team, a Chinese team, a European team, and do that. Like, try something different, right? Because doing the same style format with these franchise-based leagues, it's not working anymore, right? So you have to find ways to capture viewership, engage fans, like spice it up a little bit. I thought the Worlds format last year was way better than it was in previous years. With you come in, you're in the group stage, the games are meaningless, right? It's like now at least you're getting inspiring matchups or teams that might not play each other. So no, I thought that was better, but it's just certain things need to change. I think the way teams have been operating is changing. We're so heavily dependent on sponsorships to make money and selling merch. Not everyone can sell merch. Like we're one of the few probably that can really do a good job there and make some money. But what it comes down to teams to really sustain is in-game skins, like the way Counter-Strike has a really great system with their stickers and their guns, and Valorant's doing it now. League of Legends, other than winning Worlds, there's nothing, right? So how do you figure that out? And I hope they solve that, sooner than later, because I think, if you're the big NFL of esports and league, which it probably is, how do you create an ecosystem that's sustainable for people to want to still keep investing in the scene? Because it's expensive, especially when you're spending at the rate a T1 is.
Yeah. I mean, what is the actual impact that developer backed programs have had for T1 over the years? Because I've been a part of multiple at this point, with the new VCT bundle coming out, the Siege skin being in game around the time when you join T1.
Yeah.
And every year with like the icon in game, as well as the league skins that you guys get for winning Worlds. What's the impact been on that financially?
Well, I mean, Valorant, but I think like most teams that participated, we were that team was profitable last year from year one. And I think the way they had it up with the champions buddies or like the Sao Paulo package, Valorant, I think, had a chance to look at everything that was wrong with the model for League and kind of fix that. And the fact that we have year two of the League and we already have an in-game skin and package that fans can buy for a reasonable price, right? $25, whatever. It's great. Like it was really great. I think for League, like, yeah, we're benefits of, when you go to MSI and there's a little skins package there, stuff like that. But the world skins, where you would think it'd be a massive windfall for the orgs, it's really not. Like the way the math shakes out, the lion's share is not going to the orgs. Players get a nice chunk, and Riot takes their piece. So the team that of the League that won, all 9 of them get a cut, right? Like it's just, the math never changed from when the players' salaries were 10 grand a year. And now that the players are making millions of dollars a year, maybe the math should change on the skins, because it's like the teams are covering the cost of everything. And you think that winning the biggest event of the year, that there should be some sort of windfall for the team that kind of climbs the mountain. But yeah, it's not as much as you would think. And hopefully they can rectify that over the next few years.
You mentioned some of the other ventures that T1 is doing to kind of set itself apart, like the T1 Base Camp, the retail spaces that you have, really investing in gamer culture in Korea and trying to bring the T1 brand to many different facets. What else is the brand doing to make it one of the more successful esports organizations and long-term sustainable?
I think it's funny, the stuff that we do now, like, that we implemented when I got there, content, having influencers, like the behind the scenes stuff, sponsorships, that was not commonplace in South Korea esports, right? We got a lot of flack for doing that. A lot of the narrative was like, oh, let them play games and stuff. But it's like, you're at a point where these are businesses now. These are not just game teams. These are not just guys showing up in jeans and playing. Like these are proper businesses with standalone entities with with boards that we have to answer to. So like you have to be able to make a sustainable business, or there is no T1, right? There is no Genji. So we've experimented over the years with a couple of different things. I think the core base level business, like the table stake stuff, right? Selling your merchandise. We've done a good job of doing pop-ups at tentpole moments, at MSI or Worlds. We were fortunate, obviously, to have MSI in Korea in 22 and then Worlds in 23. So doing pop-ups, doing watch parties. We have a cafe attached to our second building where our esports academy is. So we have a coffee shop. We have player-themed drinks. When orgs come through, if they're boot camping, we can do a G2 themed drink. A lot of signed cups in the cabinet from former pros or current pros that have come through. So we've started these businesses up. You look at what we've done with merchandise, where when we got there, we weren't even selling jerseys. So to go from $0 in revenue to millions of dollars revenue is a huge lift, especially thinking that we've done all this while COVID was raging on the first couple of years, really. Like when I got there, COVID started 3 months into my 2020 year. So, and we were able to build a facility, start up businesses, hire staff. So, we experimented with owned IP. So we did a webtoon called The Challenger, launched that in Korea, China, Japan, and the West. That did pretty cool. It was like Ready Player One meets Harry Potter with Faker as a professor, kind of an older character. And we've done a couple music projects with DJ Raiden, who's a friend of the org. Those were great. The second song we did, Last Man Standing, was like 2022. It's like we were close. We were the second last man standing. So it was poetic there, but we've done that. And then launching our businesses. I think it just, having an esports academy, you look at my league roster, 4 of the 5 kids all came from our academy system, including Faker. So Carrier was the only one that, we acquired via signing and free agency. So, getting to see the best talent in South Korea, parents are aware of our brand, which is super helpful. So brand awareness is really strong for us. So, getting that path to pro or path to improvement, kids that want to improve, or kids that have high potential to be signed to our rookies team, that move up to our challengers team, that can go to our LCK roster. We've signed 2 foreign players for the first time in league, with obviously Reckless being famous, superstar European gamer. And then Griffin, who's American, who came through kind of LS's boot camp academy. He's on our rookies team. So, we're even looking outside of our traditional means, and both those guys are learning Korean and going through the process because we speak Korean in T1 and especially in games. So, but we've tried to do the little things right and do them well so that we can continue to service our fandom, make sure that they want to continue supporting because they have options to either not spend or spend their money or where to support the team. So, we just try to do the little things right.
Yeah. Out of all the professional scenes that T1 has been a part of over the time of you being CEO, what's been your favorite?
In terms of the scene overall,
Like just being in the space, absorbing the content that goes with it, the fandom, all different aspects.
yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I think like I loved Dota. I just thought Dota was like it's an older community. Like it's not vibrant, right, by any means, but it was a fun live experience when you go to the actual events. And I thought the players had a little bit more personality or they could show a little more emotion. Because we weren't a full Korean roster. We were kind of a mix of APAC. FGC with Leo dominating in Smash. Which by the way, I think when Riot fully launches that game, that's going to be their version of soccer. Like that's going to be their biggest game because FGC is kind of the underserved, giant where if you keep the community feel to it, they can make a ton of money and make a really cool scene. Valorant was great because we got in first. We signed Brax as the first pro. We hosted one of the first events for a 50K prize pot. And we've slowly grown there and now we moved from America to Korea. But obviously League, I mean, with having Faker and everything and what we've been able to accomplish, people got tired of us finishing second, but there's 100+ teams in the world that would kill it for the resume that we've had over the past few years, whether it was
Right.
even before we won. But just seeing the fandom, like filling up stadiums, in America and Korea, and even in Europe when we were there in 2018, it's just been really cool to see. I think sitting at the top of the table of the food chain in terms of like the teams in the league, having to get to work closely with Riot to kind of move everything in a direction that is sustainable, has been really good. And I think the fans are super passionate. But with every game, we have to figure out a way. This is not just on teams, it's on the publishers. Like a fraction of people that actually play League watch League of Legends esports, right? It's the same thing with Valorant. It's the same thing with Counter-Strike. So how do you get the people that are not watching to watch? So I think we have to do a better job as a group and a community to get there. But if you start getting a larger slice of that player base to support esports, sky's the limit.
Nice.
And esports, by the way, it's so young. It's like 25 years old.
Yeah.
Like football and baseball have been around for so long. So like the thing is we're digital, and when the world shut down during COVID, esports was thriving. Some of the biggest viewership numbers we've ever had, and our warts are seen everywhere because we're so young and we have such a digital focus and second screen users and fans are so engaged with online communities, whether it's on Reddit, it's on Discord. So, you're going to get instantaneous feedback from your core consumer, which is like, I think older businesses or traditional sports would be wise to adopt a strategy, and they try to toe dip with getting creative content, but esports does it the best in terms of hearing their communities, even when they engage with like the publishers and they're yelling at them about the formats or this and that, and you're getting instant feedback. It goes a long way to really make it feel like you're a part of something special.
Right. And even collegiate esports to capitalize off of what you said about esports being young, collegiate esports even younger. And
Yeah.
it's still evolving like more and more every year.
There's such a missed opportunity with collegiate esports. I've been saying this to Riot, but like instead of having an LCS academy system, what they were trying to do, like they should have just partnered with colleges to be their farm system. So, you can sign a kid and he goes to Maryville, right? And it's like, hey, you're 100 Thieves kid and you're here for 2 years, just like you do in hockey, right? You draft a kid and he goes here. Like, why not? The colleges are investing in the space. The NCAA is probably never gonna look to, organize it because they're not going to take away the prize money. So like you're kind of free from their clutches, and you can leverage the publishers in the different games to really kind of use the colleges as like feeding grounds, not only for players, for coaching talent, for executive talent, for operations, production, content, social media. But it just seems like no one ever really figured out the math, right? And there's a certain handful of schools that are doing really well with it, but not everyone's doing great. And the publishers need to be more ingrained with what they're doing in collegiate sports, because they're your future kind of employees, whether it's working for the publisher directly or working for the teams. Like, they're going to help feed the monster, right? And it's wild to me that it's never been figured out.
I think it's a work and like a trial and error kind of thing. Like Seawall has evolved a lot ever since its inception. I mean, even with Valorant right now with CVal, Riot definitely has like the stronger collegiate backed leagues, but there's
Yeah.
still a lot of work to go in terms of making it an
Yeah.
actual pipeline.
Well, the problem too is universities are not comfortable with FPS, which are the most popular games, and like, no problem with kids playing football and hockey and hitting themselves and all this other stuff, but like, they can't get past video games, right? It's the blame of everything. So it's a challenge that you're always going to face. My man's got like 7 stacks of food back there. Look at that. You got the game too with the slides on. Nice. Um, but yeah, it's something that'll always be a challenge, because from a bureaucratic perspective, you look at where the educators are coming from, or the presidents of universities, and they are not of the generation that were growing up playing esports, right? They were maybe Miss Pac-Man, and that's a maybe, right? So they don't view video games as a means to an end, which is why Korea thrives so well, because in South Korea, kids are leaving school at 9th grade to go into an academy team for a pro league. And it's an honorable profession in South Korea, right? Whereas in America, it's you need to go to college, you need to go to finish high school. Like, it's not the same opportunity. I also think South Korea being so dense and having a really good public transportation is the hidden factor, because you're a train stop away or a subway stop away from a PC bomb. And I know, growing up, I didn't have a $3,000 computer at my house, and I played console games, right? Up until I was T1 CEO, and I got gifted all the fun, cool stuff. So I think the cost to, the barrier to entry for playing professional esports, you need that expensive equipment that, by the way, gets outdated after 1 year, sometimes sooner. And not everyone has the ability to do that. And you're not playing many pro games on console, right? So you have to have access to infrastructure. It's like, you can put a basketball court anywhere, you can pop a baseball field, throw some bases down. Esports, we need
Infrastructure.
we need infrastructure. We need high-end equipment. Like, I was talking to Penn State, and they were telling me I hired their president. He was their intern. He came to Korea, Owen, and then he worked for us this past year. And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "How do you guys play esports?" Well, we have a stick drive with the game on it, and we find a lab and we plug the game. I'm like, "Oh my god, you need a home." Some schools, to their credit, have invested in these esports labs, but like, the setups aren't conducive to how you would train. Like, my guys in Korea, like, the way we train is very specific, right? And like, you need a space and VOD review, and like, they just think it's like you're playing a video game, right? And that's not how it works. There's a lot that goes into being T1, and I'm sure other teams as well, but we put a lot of time and effort, not just in the games, but like in the doctor visits, the physical training, the strength training, like the mental coaches. Like, it's not just, hey, here's a computer and a chair, good luck.
Have you looked into what your alma maters are doing with esports?
They're not doing much. I mean, I'm always like, always cracks me up, because usually, like, alma maters, like, they like, I don't know, they have keyword searches and they look you up and they see what you're doing, and then they start hitting you up. Never been reached out. I did some stuff with Villanova a little bit, on some esports legal case stuff that they were doing, competition case stuff. But yeah, but no one's ever reached out. Was like, hey, what are you doing? Penn State. My wife went to Penn State, so she played softball there. So for me, I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, but you guys are like at the bottom of the barrel here. Like, I want to help you like become a powerhouse, because Penn State could throw a couple $1 million. They could sneeze and it comes out of the budget there, and they could dominate. And that's a bigger school, right? Like, other schools have to like grind and find their way. But they're kind of like finally on their path. They finally have a standalone facility where they can like fly their trade. So but yeah, there's a lot more that has to go on. A lot of schools in California are doing it pretty well. I think UC Irvine is one that's really done a good job. Obviously, you guys have won a lot of national championships, so you're doing something right. I went to the University of Hawaii and met Sky and that team out there. They're doing some really great stuff, and they got fortunate that the Overwatch League was out there during COVID, so they got
Right.
some real world experience. So there's a couple places that are doing it right, but it's so few and far between. Like you need the rest of the people to catch up. So, because no one wants to root for the haves and have-nots. Like you really need that kind of couple dominant pieces, a lot of good pieces in the middle, and then some up and comers. And there's not that disparity yet. It's all over the place.
Are you familiar with the term spending highway?
Spending highway?
Yeah, it's a business term. If not, I can go into a little bit of detail of
Yeah,
what it
give
is.
give me your speech.
So the spending highway basically it's the mission statement of your company and how you drive your company to either save money, make money, or plan for the future in
Mhm.
aligned with your mission statement. And you
Yeah.
already mentioned a couple of those factors of how T1 would like save money and plan for the future with like your training camps and like your PC bongs and stuff like that. What's some other factors about the company that would fall in those three categories?
Well, I mean, I think it's I was coming into after Worlds, I assumed that we were going to lose three of our five league players, right? Like I had no assumption that we would sign those kids. And then somehow we go from celebrating a championship, having a nice massive family dinner with everyone's family to 4 days later, everyone's signed. And that's a calculated risk because there's a new salary system in South Korea that they're implementing. Right? We have a lot more. It's not an open field like it was when we first got there. And I'll never forget when we first got into esports in South Korea, the average salary was $38,000. The average salary now is not $38,000. Like, it's well north of $500,000 for on the average, and we're not average at T1, right? So, um, I think you have to pick and choose because there's only so much time in a day where you can generate revenue from a sponsorship and partnership perspective. The guys only have so many hours to practice film content. We brought Coma back, so his system is very important to kind of how we generate wins and losses, but also he does a great job of managing the different personalities. So for us, we made it a focus the past few years to find avenues to generate money without burdening the players. So that's why you see the coffee shop, PC Bong, retail business, the academy, like all those things don't require the players, right? Like they don't have to be there, do anything like. But it was funny when we launched the PC Bong, the kids would just show up like they wanted to go there in public. They worked a shift at the PC Bong. Gumi, she's passing out food, and Faker went in the back, signed his chair where he likes to sit, and um, they actually like I think enjoy ingraining themselves in kind of what T1 has to offer, like and the things that are afforded to them because they're part of T1. I think the other guys, especially coming off the World Championship, have seen how Faker lives in terms of it's tough to go many places. You're recognized pretty much everywhere you go. A lot of time with Faker, we have to eat in private rooms just because a line forms, and it's like you can't really have a meal. Whether they go to places and guys give them free meals now. Like we took Carrie to dinner, and the chefs came out, took pictures. Here's a free meal. Right, like they're learning that celebrity side of it all, and it's a downside too because when you reach the mountaintop, you come back to a regular season that's 18 games long, and you're like, it's the slog of the regular season, right? Like for us, it's always been about winning world championships. So like the regular season is kind of a means to an end. It's nice to win the domestic titles. Don't get me wrong, we have 10 of them, but it's the goal is to win worlds. So it's a long season. January to August, you're focused on regular season stuff, and then it's not until that 8-week stretch there in September to November or whatever that you really get to care about the ultimate prize. And it's tough to keep everyone motivated, right? You have to like pull the different levers throughout the year, and there's guys get fatigued, guys get sick, guys get tired, guys get annoyed with each other. Like you just have to kind of marionette a little bit and play the right keys at the right time. And the teams that do thrive and grow and come out on the other side. And sometimes you don't end up winning. And it just a lot of outside factors. You see a lot of roster changes where something's not going right and people start swapping out players. And I think you look at T1, like honestly, I think these kids have been together for since 2021, right? That's a long time. Like you don't see rosters stay together this long. And I think there's something to be said for the continuity of being able to keep your roster together, being able to grow, and you know, they're essentially like brothers at this point, right? Like they can finish each other's sentences, they have their inside jokes, they know what makes each other tick, and they know what gets into each other's nerves, and they can, push those buttons when they need to. So um I think there's something to be said for the continuity of a roster, like letting them have those growing pains. Because before we actually reached the mountaintop, we had those pitfalls, we had those hard losses, and I think you have to go through that. I mean, I feel like for me, it's like I've gone through a coach a year at this point, literally every year, and it's just T1's a hard job. It's hard to coach and be part of T1, right? It just is, and it's not for everybody. You burn bright, and then that's it, right? Like so, knowing when to make those moves and changes, super important.
You've been very vocal about not only the amount of success that you guys have had at T1 with under your head as CEO, but also just along the way, you've made it a point that you've had some failures that you've learned from. In the final question of the interview, do you have any more words of advice of people just going out of the workforce or trying to go into the workforce, and just any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is no's are free. So don't ever be afraid to ask, right? It's just you're gonna get a lot more no's in life than you are yeses. And if you don't take the initiative to try to get what you want, or if you don't get it, hey, why didn't I get it? What can I do better? Like always be learning. I think it's so important. Like learning doesn't stop once you leave school. It doesn't stop once you enter the workforce. Like you have to constantly sharpen your toolkit, right? Like things that I've been embracing the past years, like you look at AI where, Chat GPT, that can speed your day up and help you out. And you have to embrace these new tools or else you're going to fall behind. And I think our success at T1 is nothing to do with me. It's about putting the right people in place, letting them do their job, and providing guidance where needed, right? It's, I am the public face of it, right? I get too much credit if we win. I get too much credit if we lose, right? It's just because I'm the public part of it. But there's so many hardworking people in T1 that don't get the recognition publicly, right? That are, really key contributors to everything that we've built at T1. So, sometimes you go unsung, and it's your point as a manager and a leader to make sure that they don't go unrecognized. So they might go under the radar from a public perspective, but your job as a leader is to make sure that you're always recognizing people when they do good work. You don't wait until end of the year reviews to make corrections for bad behaviors or things that aren't working. You have to, and this is our mindset at T1, you have to build the ship, fly it, and then fix it all while you're just still flying it. Right? Like you can't just fly and then land it and fix. You got to run and gun. You got to go. And we're still a startup. I view it as we're still not steady state. So we're still building and tinkering. And one of my big mistakes was like trying to be in so many games early on. We were in like 9 different games. And I thought you had to be in all these different titles. And it's like the esports ecosystem, like some of the publishers weren't building anything for you. Like Fortnite, when we were in there, we had a couple World Cup players. It was it's a marketing tool, right? Fortnite's a marketing game. And a lot of kids made a lot of money, right? A lot of players, like, hey, they won and they did great. Like, but it wasn't an esport, and it's still not. And we had to get out of that game. We were in PUBG. It's like these games aren't always the means to an end. So like just being in all the different titles, unless it's a sustainable ecosystem, like why be there, right? I don't want to be in a game unless I have a chance to win. And if I'm not going to be a top tier team, like I get out, right? We got out of Dota. We made it to TI, but then all the best Dota was in the Europe in America. So it's like Asia wasn't there. We had no infrastructure. We weren't partnered with anybody. It's like we got out. So you have to know when to make those tough calls. But yeah, so
But yeah, I appreciate your time, Joe. Thank you so much for the interview. I'm gonna
yeah.
stop the recording actually.